That's the opening of the movie. That's the first thing anyone ever sees. Not a title card, not a voiceover about the mob, a body in a trunk, and he's still alive.
Marty knew exactly what he was doing. He pulled that scene from the middle of the timeline and put it right at the top because he wanted to tell the audience immediately, this is not The Godfather. There are no roses on the desk. There's no orchestra. There's a guy bleeding in a trunk at 3 a.m, and these three idiots are trying to figure out what to do about it.
And what people don't realize is that scene, that actual event, is probably the single most important moment in the entire Goodfellas story. Not the Lufthansa heist, not Henry flipping, the killing of Billy Batts. Because everything that happens after that, every death, every betrayal, every arrest, traces back to what happened in that bar.
That's what we're breaking down today. Not just the scene, the real event. Who Billy Batts actually was, what really happened that night, and why the real murder was even worse than what Marty showed.
In the movie, Billy Batts shows up. He's at a welcome home party. He busts Tommy's balls about the shine box, and then he's dead. That's his entire arc. Maybe 10 minutes of screen time, but the real Billy Batts, William Bentvena, had a whole life before that night.
Born the 22nd of February 1933 in Manhattan, his father was first-generation Sicilian. His mother was actually Irish, which is interesting because in the mob world, Italian heritage was everything. But Billy was accepted into the Gambino family. He became an associate in 1959, a full-made member by 1961.
And he wasn't some low-level guy. Billy was a street soldier under John Gotti's crew. He knew Gotti personally. He was involved in the Ormento Group, which was a massive heroin smuggling ring run by a Lucchese capo named John Ormento, along with Carmine Galante. Millions of dollars in product moving through New York.
Billy got busted on a drug deal in Bridgeport, Connecticut in 1959. Undercover cops caught him in the act. He eventually got convicted alongside Galante in 1962, 15 years in federal prison.
And here's the key detail the movie never gets into. While Billy Batts was locked up for those years, Jimmy Burke, the real Jimmy, my character, moved in on Billy's loan shark operation. Billy had a whole book of people who owed him money. Jimmy just took it. And when Billy got released in 1970, he came home expecting to pick up where he left off. But his rackets were gone. Jimmy had them, and Billy wanted them back. Let's walk through the night when it all happened.
In real life, it was two separate events, 2 weeks apart. The Shinebox insult happened at a welcome home party at Robert's Lounge, Jimmy Burke's bar in Ozone Park. That's where Billy saw Tommy for the first time since getting out and made the crack about shining shoes.
Frank Vincent played that scene perfectly, that casual arrogance. Billy Batts was a made man. He felt untouchable. In his mind, he could say whatever he wanted to Tommy because Tommy was just an associate. Not made, below him in the hierarchy, and made men could talk to associates however they pleased.
And that's what's going on under the surface. Billy isn't just busting balls. He's reminding everyone in the room, especially Tommy, where they stand. He's saying, I remember when you were nothing and I'm still above you. That's a power move, and the real Tommy DeSimone couldn't handle it.
Henry Hill said that after the Shinebox comment, Tommy turned to him and Jimmy and said, plain as day, I'm going to kill that motherfucker. And he meant it.
But he had to wait. You can't just kill a made man in the middle of a crowded bar at his own welcome home party. So Tommy waited 2 weeks.
June 11th, 1970. Billy showed up at the suite that was Henry's nightclub in Jamaica, Queens, not Robert's Lounge, which is a detail the movie changes. By the end of the night, the bar had mostly emptied out. Billy was sitting at the bar drinking, talking to Jimmy, and that's when Tommy came in.
In real life, Tommy pistol whipped Billy in the head repeatedly while screaming, shine these fucking shoes. Jimmy held him down. The beating was savage. And here's a detail that almost caused 2 more deaths that night. There was still one couple left in the bar, a guy from their crew named Alex and his girlfriend. When Alex saw what was happening, he got up to leave. And Henry Hill said Jimmy was so amped up, so full of adrenaline, he was ready to kill Alex and his girlfriend right there if they caused any problem. Henry had to physically escort them out and lock the door.
That never made it into the movie, but it tells you the state of mind these guys were in. The violence creates more violence. Once you cross that line, Everyone becomes a potential threat.
They beat Billy until they thought he was dead, then they loaded him into the trunk of Henry's car, and this is where the movie and real life sync up again beautifully.
They needed a shovel and a knife and lime to help dissolve the body, and Tommy knew exactly where to get all of that at his mother's house.
That scene is one of my favorites in the entire movie, and almost everything in it actually happened. They really did stop at Tommy's mother's house. She really did wake up and insist on cooking for them. They really did sit there eating pasta while Billy Batts was bleeding out in the trunk 20 feet away.
And my mother, Marty's real mother, Catherine Scorsese, played Tommy's mom. She improvised most of her dialogue. The thing about the painting with the two dogs, the way she asked about the blood on our clothes, Marty just let her go.
And Tommy tells her they hit a deer. He needs her butcher knife to cut the hoof off the car. She buys it. She doesn't ask questions. That's how it works in those families. You learn not to ask.
Then they drive upstate, and the thumping starts.
Now in the movie, that's the opening scene. They open the trunk. Billy's still alive. I stab him with the kitchen knife. You shoot him. Henry slams the trunk. Freeze frame as far back as I can remember. Perfect cinema.
But in real life, it was worse. Much worse. There was no knife. There was no gun. When they opened that trunk and realized Billy was still alive, Tommy took the shovel and beat him with it. Again and again and again. Jimmy used a tire iron. Henry Hill described it as one of the most sickening things he ever witnessed. He said Tommy stabbed Billy 30 or 40 times after the beating just to make sure. It was prolonged, it was brutal, and Billy Batts was conscious for part of it.
Marty made a deliberate choice to show it cleaner in the movie. Knife, gun, done. Because if he'd shown what actually happened, it would have been unwatchable. Sometimes the real story is too real for the screen.
So they bury him. In real life, Jimmy Burke had a friend who owned a dog kennel upstate in New York. That's where they dumped Billy, buried him on the property. Problem solved. Except
3 months later, the guy who owned the kennel sold the land to housing developers. And Jimmy gets a call. They're about to start digging on the exact spot where Billy Batts is buried. So now they have to go back, dig him up, and move him.
Henry Hill described the smell as the worst thing he'd ever experienced. 3 months in the ground, in the summer heat. When they pulled up the body, it was barely recognizable. And they had to handle it, move it, load it back into a car.
In the book Wise Guy, Hill says the body ended up in a mechanical compactor at a New Jersey junkyard owned by a guy named Clyde Brooks, crushed into nothing. But Hill also said on the Goodfellas DVD commentary that at some point the body was actually buried in the basement of Robert's Lounge, Jimmy's own bar, before it was eventually compacted. So there are conflicting stories, which is normal. When you're dealing with mob history, you never get one clean version.
But here's what matters. Everyone in the Gambino family knew Billy Batts was missing. A made man doesn't just disappear without people asking questions. John Gotti wanted answers. The Gambino leadership wanted answers. And slowly, over months and years, the truth leaked out. Somebody told somebody. Maybe it was Paul Verio, the boss. Maybe it was someone else. But the Gambinos found out that Tommy DeSimone had killed their man.
And that's the sentence that sealed Tommy's fate. 9 years later, January 1979, they came for him. The making ceremony, that was a setup. We covered that in episode 1. But the point is, Billy Batts was the original sin. Everything starts and ends with that bar on June 11th, 1970.